Hello and welcome to Ewe Sew You. My name's Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin on a spindle, I dabble in weaving from time to time and anything else that takes my crafty fancy. But today we're having a look at all the things I've been working on in December. So put your feet up, grab a brew and let's get started. Welcome back to any returning viewers, and to any new viewers a very warm welcome to you. As I mentioned at the opening to this video, we're looking at the things I've been working on in December this week. So that's everything after the Flaxlight cardigan, which has its own video up. I believe I finished that just after I put up the November Makes video, but it was finished in November. So I'm going to leave that there, particularly as it's got its own little video detailing how I went about working it and showing off the finished garment. Plus I've left it upstairs and the other half still in bed, so yeah. So let's get started with what I am wearing. This is the fabulously festive sweater. If you were following my Vlogmas, you will have seen me knitting on this, so you will have seen some of the trials and tribulations I gave myself whilst working on it. Issue number 1, the pattern is entirely written in Norwegian. I speak no Norwegian. Issue number 2, my gauge was off, and instead of being a good girl and ripping back and switching needles, I carried on regardless, which was fine for the top portion. The top portion fits fine, and it did right the way through. I adjusted which set of numbers I was following to allow for the tighter gauge, so I went up to the next size, and the neckline is a bit closer fitting than the pattern picture, but the two sizes that I was working with, they use the same count for the neckline anyway, so I don't know how much larger it would have got. It would have been a little bit larger, but not much. So yeah, so the top part, absolutely fine. The gauge only really became a problem when I got to the colour work, and not only was I knitting to a tighter gauge than called for in plain stocking stitch, but I forgot to change needles like I normally do for colour work. I normally go up a needle size, so the gauge got even tighter. So the sweater is a bit closer fitting than intended, but it's fine. It's a good reasonable length for wearing with jeans, for wearing over dresses. It's only going to get worn in, well, essentially December, possibly very early January, but it's going to be a seasonal item. It's not going to be worn all year round, and the fit works. It's just not the one that was in my head when I cast on, but that's fine. These things happen. Okay, so yeah, that's the fabulously festive sweater, all done and dusted, and it's had its first outing properly on Christmas Day. So yeah, so that's that done. The next finished object was to use up some of the leftover yarn from this project, so we'll go to that one next. I bought the Nordic Mitten Club from Scandinavia this year, so that was a series of patterns from Scandinavia and Northern Europe. So the first pattern that came out is the one that I ended up knitting because it was in DK yarn, and that's what I had. This is Auslaug, the Auslaug mittens. You will have again seen these, so excuse the light coming through the Christmas tree. You will have seen these again during Vlogmas as I knit them up again before Christmas, just the last few days before Christmas. They are a Selbu style mitten, so they have the normal alternating colours on the side. They have the distinctive pointy tops of Scandinavian mittens. I don't know where else they do pointy tops. Possibly Russia, possibly Eastern Europe. I think Latvian mitts have a pointy top. So yeah, Eastern Europe, Scandinavia. To my knowledge, British mittens tend to be rounded. I could be wrong on that, I'm not an expert in mittens. But anywho, these are Selby style mittens. They are a one size pattern. So with these sorts of patterns, you adjust the size by adjusting the needle size. Did I do that? No, I did not. Having knit Scandinavian mittens before and found that they came out a little too tight, you would think I would have gone up a needle size. I was using the needle size I should have used for the colour work on the sweater. But yeah, I should probably have gone up again a needle size. So they are a little snug at the moment, which means that the stitch work on the palm of the hand, because I've got fleshy thumbs, distorts a bit when I wear them. So they do need a blocking to minimise that. But again, They're only going to get worn in the winter. They are warm, they do go on. So that's all good. Okay, so that's my knitted finished objects. Now I have a sewing finished object that I'm going to show you. Technically speaking, this is a Minerva Ambassadors project, and it's going with another garment, so I'm not putting it up on Minerva until I've done the second garment. So this is a bit of a sneak peek, but for that reason I'm showing you the cotton lawn side and not the corduroy side, because the corduroy is Minerva fabric and I do need to post things on Minerva before I show them in full elsewhere. So this cotton lawn I got from Amazon, and I will just give you a quick preview essentially of this. I'll put more details up on Minerva once I've done the trousers that go with it. So this is technically the lining fabric of my everyday waistcoat by the new Craft House. It's a very simple shape. Again, excuse the light coming through the Christmas tree. It's blocking the curtains, so I can't fix that. So yeah, so it's a very simple shape. I've bound it with bias tape made from the lining fabric, the fabric I got from that big online retailer that sells everything under the sun. It's only a couple of quid a metre. So yeah, I went for the size 22. My body measurements, they suggested the size 26. When I looked at the finished garment measurement, I was like, that's going to be a bit loose. And yeah, it would be. I mean, this is designed for layering, so it is meant to be loose. The armholes are very big. So I think if I was to do it again, particularly in this sort of fabric that is cord on the other side, that's going to sort of hold its shape, I would raise the bottom of the arm side a little bit, because it just stands out from my body a little bit more than I necessarily want it to. It's not an outer garment, it is a layering piece. You know, you could wear it as a gilet. It's got wadding in it to give it extra warmth, extra thickness. I could have quilted it, I didn't. They don't ask you to in the pattern, but I may well do that for a future version. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see how much I wear this, and it can be worn both ways out. So you can make it the same fabric on both sides. You can do it like I've done it with contrasting fabric on either side and wear it both ways. There are optional ties, but I omitted those. So I'm going to see how much I wear it. If I wear it a reasonable amount, I will make more in different fabrics. I'm quite tempted to make a patchwork one and quilt it. Possibly raising the arm side, as I say, or bringing in the sides slightly. I think I need the depth of the neck from this side, and I definitely need the length, and I need the breadth in the back from this side. So I don't necessarily want to go down a size, but I do think I mean, whether I do it or not, I do think it would benefit from slightly smaller armholes, but not much smaller, maybe an inch, maybe an inch and a half. We're not talking huge changes here. But you could also riff off of this pattern. You could change the hemline to points like a traditional waistcoat. You could do a tighter fitting one if you wanted. You could omit the wadding and do it just in fabric. So there's all sorts of ways that you can build on this very basic, very simple waistcoat pattern. I think it's going to be useful during the autumn, winter, spring. As I say, if I wear it lots, I will make more. It may even be good in the summer when it's like cooler evenings, to sling it on instead of a cardigan. So yeah, so we'll see how much I wear it, and if I get the wear out of it, I will make more. It's a nice, easy make. If you've never made a garment before, it would be a good one to start with, because it is quite straightforward. There's minimal fitting to do on it. If you have come from quilting, you'll find this really easy. As the most complicated part is binding the edge, and if you've quilted, you'll know how to bind things. So yeah, so that's my finished objects. So let's move on to works in progress, and we're mostly talking blankets, so I'm going to go down this side. So first up, we have my scrap blanket projects. Now these are projects that I dip in and out of from time to time. They are going to be ongoing projects. They're going to take quite a long time to get finished. So first up, let's take a look at the crochet square. So this is what I already had made up for the crochet squares scrap blanket. So I'll put that to one side. I have made a couple more squares from my magic ball to go in this. So done a couple of the circle ones. So this one you're actually starting to see the colour changes from the magic ball. This one is at part of the magic ball that's got quite a lot of that colour. So I've just made a couple of squares for that, and I've got a few more. I'll stitch them together, so I'll probably do 4 of each design before I connect them and put them on. I've also done a bit of work on my sock yarn mitered square. So it's grown a bit since you last saw it. If I can just find the right way to hold it up. Okay, so I believe, it was this section I started at, adding on. So we've had a bit of growth in December, so I've done quite a few on here. So this just sort of sits by my chair, and every once in a while I pick it up, add a few more squares on. So yes, it is going to take a long time to do, but when you're between projects, it's actually quite nice to have these ongoing blanket projects that you're not intending on getting finished necessarily, but they're nice and simple. You can do them in front of the TV. The crochet one's a little bit more complicated because I've got 3 or 4 different squares that I'm doing. So that takes a little bit more thinking. But the mitered squares, you can just sit and get on with them. Once you've finished one project and you don't want to cast on a new one, or you're waiting on yarn to arrive, or you just need a break from something a bit more complicated. So yeah, so it is going to take years to get those finished, but not as long as the hand spun one, which I've still only got 2 squares on. I need to start using more of my hand spun yarn. Then I'll have yarn to put in my hand spun mitered square blanket. Okay, so let's pop these ones back in their box and move them out of the way. So I have also made quite a bit of progress on my larger and older blanket project. So some years ago, when we were living in, I believe, southeast London, so round about 2015, 2016, I got gifted some Woolcraft cakes. They're gradient yarn, and I couldn't work out what to do with them. In the end, I settled on starting a Sophie's Universe blanket, and instead of changing colours all the time, I decided to use the gradient. I'm obviously not going to hold the whole thing out because, I mean, this is half of it, and it doesn't fit in the screen. So, and it's not finished. It's a reasonable way off finished. I mean, we're in the last section, but yeah, we are still quite some way off finishing this. So I have about 14 rows. So in December I've been working from this stitch marker here. So I've got a few rounds on. It takes hours to do a round now. So about 14 more rounds to do before I then add on these squares that I've done in a contrasting colour. Obviously I've had to buy more yarn since starting this because I had 2 cakes to begin with. This blanket eats yarn. This is Aran Weights, but it is a lot bigger one than a lot of Sophie's Universes. I'm going to make it rectangular. So I've got a strip of squares all ready to go because I had to get more yarn and I was struggling to make the colourway that I had before because Woolcraft doesn't exist anymore. These Woolcraft cakes don't exist anymore. They're essentially the same as Karen cakes. So I did end up getting Karen cakes, and I could get this colour, so I was able to finish my squares. So they'll get put on in 14 rounds time. And I was able to get not exactly the same colour, but a similar colour. So these last few rounds are in the Karen cake. I'm going to do the round I've just done and the next round in the contrast colour, and then switch back to the darker one for the next few rounds, just to sort of tie that contrast colour in a bit. There's also some surface crochet to do, which I'll do in the contrast colour, assuming I have enough. I may even go back a section or so, if I can find it. Yeah, so here, there are some optional flower petals that I could have put on here that I may go back and do in either one of the two carrot cake colours that I'm using. The paler carrot cake is exactly the same colour as the Woolcraft was, but the darker blue, some of the blues are a bit brighter, but it's blending through fine. It's close enough that once it's all finished, it's not going to matter. So I've got this and one more of these left, and I've got about 1.5 of the dark blue left. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that is enough to do my 14 rounds, attach my squares and do the border. Some of it is going to be done in the contrast colour, which wasn't the original intention, but you know what, it's fine. Okay, totally forgot to show you my Christmas Eve cast on. It's the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. Now I'm working this in West Yorkshire Spinners Signature Sparkle in Vintage Tinsel. And about halfway down, I'm going to switch to this one, which is Silent Night. So that with the Musselburgh hat, it's a double layer hat. So you put it on and fold the brim up with one. So you basically cast on one crown, you knit along a lot of stocking stitch, and you cast off another crown, then you stick one crown inside the other. So it's a double layer, which is good for the thinner yarns, but the pattern's written for any gauge. You can use any yarn you want. But by changing the colour halfway down, when I turn up the brim, it's going to be a contrast. So I'm really excited for that. But, yeah, just thought I'd add that in quickly. The last work in progress that I'm going to show you is actually something that I got for Christmas. This is a Tibetan style supported spindle. This was a Christmas present from my dad and my stepmom. It's made by Ian Tate, who has the website the Wood Emporium, which is based on the Isle of Wight, and he's IST Crafts on Instagram. I don't know if the Tibetan style spindles actually originate in Tibet or not. I haven't done the research for that yet, but he does talk about this section looking like a Tibetan bell. So I'm comfortable calling that a Tibetan spindle regardless, because he's modelled this on a Tibetan bell. So supported spindle, it comes with a matching bowl. Well, this one comes with a matching bowl. A lot of the supported spindles seem to come with bowls, but they don't all come with bowls. But you can essentially use any bowl. Some of them come with little metal tips. This one didn't. You can't use a metal tipped spindle in a wooden bowl without damaging the bowl. So you want a metal or a ceramic or a glass bowl or something if you've got a metal tip. So it works, same sort of principle as a drop spindle, but you're not using gravity to help with the twist because you're supporting it underneath. So in theory, you can just spin finer, and you can certainly spin with a lot less twist. There's a lot less twist in this than I would have with one of my drop spindles. So it's interesting. This is all I've done so far since Christmas Day. We had a little bit of a dabble on Christmas Day. My stepmom was prepared and had a little clump of fibre ready for me to have a go. So yes, I'm having a play on that. There's definitely a learning curve to it, but we'll get there. So that's all my works in progress. Now, I'm not going to go into plans now because next week on, it'll be St Distaff's Day, the first 2023 video will be my plans for 2023. So at that point, I'll go over how I got on with Make 9 this year and what I'm planning for next year. So I look forward to seeing you in that video. I aim to put a video up every weekend, and I'd love to see you in the next one. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.